Elon Musk is the richest man on the planet, and the only way for the SpaceX CEO looks to be up, as his companies are doing just fine. They are high-value companies, and with Musk at their helm, it seems like they would only keep on getting better. The man is full of great ideas. However, Musk dropped a bomb about his electric car company Tesla and its stock, TSLA. Musk's statements would shake almost anyone, and we'll go through some of his statements today as he hints at a coming recession. Why does Musk think a recession is coming? How greatly would Tesla's stock be affected? Let's find out in today's video. Elon Musk has been through serious financial crises in the past. First in the 90s with the company he founded with his brother. When the dot-com bubble burst in the turn of the 21st century, everyone was affected, but Musk was able to survive it. In 2008, he once again experienced a recession as the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX. Both companies nearly went bankrupt as a result. However, he was able to survive the absolute worst to become as successful as he is now. Elon believes that we are on the verge of something similar, and it will occur in the coming months of 2022. There is a bubble similar to the one in the 90s where many people had multi-million-dollar companies. Right now, we have nearly 1,000 companies valued at more than $1 billion, which is an anomaly and an unsustainable figure. According to Elon Musk, most of these companies will cease to exist within 5 years. Anyone familiar with the pruning that occurs with time knows that it will be swift, brutal, and painful when it happens. To put the situation in context, 2021 closed with over 900 companies valued at more than $1 billion. In 2019, that number was only 150. The issue is simple. How did that number grow so organically? And how many of those businesses will survive the impending purge? Elon believes that the recession will come in either 2022 or at the very least 2023. Consumer prices are rising at a more alarming rate than any other time in history. One of the main reasons for this is the government's excessive spending, which caused the government to print its way out of the 2020 recession. Now, the same government is scrambling to raise taxes to cover its face. The ordinary American worker now needs to spend about $22 per hour to keep the federal government financed. This is an outrageous sum. The Federal Reserve aims to raise interest rates and scale down quantitative easing to reduce the federal government's budget. The Fed recently made a press statement indicating that interest rates will need to be raised to 0.9% in 2022. While 0.9% may appear to be a small amount, it is actually a significant increase compared to the average interest rate over the past decade. This is not the first time that the Federal Reserve tried this. Back in 2019, they tried to raise interest rates to 2.4% but experienced significant market backlash, forcing interest rates to drop to 1.5%, and this happened before the pandemic began. Financial markets have already become heavily reliant on 0% interest rates. Any increase, even to 0.9%, would harm the market. The Federal Reserve's objective is to keep the United States economy humming. It should not be too hot or too cold. When the economy booms and runs hot, distortions like inflation can get out of hand, threatening economic stability. This is when the Fed intervenes by raising interest rates, which helps to cool the economy and keep growth at a pace. Then, they must oversee monetary policy for the United States, which entails managing the quantity of money in the country's economy. While the Fed has a variety of instruments at its disposal for its mission, its capacity to affect interest rates is its most visible and effective monetary policy weapon. When the Fed raises interest rates during its regular meetings, it refers to the federal funds rate, commonly known as the federal funds target rate. The Federal Open Market Committee defines a target range for the federal funds rate, which acts as an interest rate benchmark. For overnight loans, large commercial banks charge each other. Banks borrow overnight loans to meet liquidity requirements established by authorities such as the Fed. The effective federal funds rate is the average of the rates banks negotiate for overnight loans. This, in turn, influences other market rates, such as prime rate and secured overnight financing rate. As a result of this indirect arrangement, the federal funds rate is the most important benchmark for interest rates in the United States economy. It influences interest rates throughout the global economy as a whole. So, the big question now is, what will happen when the Federal Reserve raises interest rates? When the Federal Reserve raises the target rate for federal funds, the purpose is to raise the cost of credit across the economy. As a result, loans become more expensive for both companies and consumers when interest rates rise. Everyone, including those unable or unwilling to make the larger installments, ends up spending more on interest payments. Postponing projects that require funding at the same time encourages consumers to conserve money to receive larger interest payments. This decreases the amount of money in circulation, which tends to limit inflation and slow economic activity. Elon Musk projected that a recession may occur as soon as spring 2022, which is around when the Fed will stop buying bonds. This sounds terrible, but it may also foreshadow an economic calamity, perhaps worse than a recession. A recession is extremely common because it's defined as 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. So even if GDP falls by 0.5% for 2 quarters, it's still called a recession. On the other hand, depression occurs when the GDP falls by more than 10% in a single year. One of the most notorious examples is the Great Depression. During this disastrous period in history, the United States GDP fell by 30%. As with every previous financial crisis, economic prosperity preceded the Great Depression. It was dubbed the Roaring Twenties. The Roaring Twenties marked one of the greatest periods of speculation, which of course set the stage for the Great Depression. Considering the present degree of speculation, we live in a time when pictures with no inherent value are being sold for tens of millions of dollars, and kids are becoming billionaires from their beds. Third world communities are making a lot of money by playing crypto games. If this isn't the Roaring Twenties, then I don't know what is. Cathie Wood, who we've discussed in previous videos and whose opinion Elon Musk values, has pointed out that rising retail inventories is one of the other factors causing a recession. She feels that oversupplied inventories are a significant contributor to the economic slowdown. Retail stocks have fallen significantly from pre-pandemic levels as supply chains struggle to satisfy customer demand. In response, businesses have ordered ridiculously large quantities of goods to fulfill consumer demand. The problem is that they have overshot the claimed demand. There's a lot of inventory sitting around, wasting away. Retail inventories have risen by more than 2%, while imports have increased by more than 4.7% and exports have dropped by 2%. In contrast, real consumption and services have flatlined while saving rates have fallen by around 6.9%. Wood believes that inventories will rise at a 24% annual rate, causing an economic slowdown and eventually a recession. There are now 2 camps on this issue, those who believe that a recession is impending and those who believe that there is more fear than fire. The latter is more market agnostic. Chamath Palihapitiya, the founder of Social Capital, has been buying Microsoft and Google while shorting Netflix, Apple, and Amazon. Cathie Wood has been shorting established corporations such as General Motors, which she predicts would suffer greatly if the stock market crashes. Ray Dalio, the world's largest hedge fund manager, believes that buying Chinese equities would provide returns that will de-risk investment portfolios. What have politicians done to rescue the situation? Well, not much. And this isn't even Elon Musk talking. It's former Treasury Secretary Lawrence Summers, who says that the White House is wrong about the causes of high inflation. He says that blaming the coming recession on corporate greed has only increased the risk that a recession will be required to tame surging prices. There has been a terrible misdiagnosis of the situation. The government has been going after billionaires and their taxes, but the fact is, we now have an overheated economy that has to cool down. While the government tries to figure out its politics and hopefully a solution, Elon Musk has continued on his path of innovation. No one knows what his plans for mitigating the recession are, but for a man who has survived 2 of the most devastating economic meltdowns in recent history, we're pretty sure he'll do just fine. So do you think Musk's predictions are correct? Comment down below.